Welcome to the Shir in Dach Yomi in Torah Or, Parshas Vayira, Daf Yud, the second half of the page on the bottom. So the mimer Pasach Eliyahu is a very deep mimer, but we'll try to say the basic pshat. The mimer says, Shaykh lepasuk erena v'gomer. So normally when you have a mimer in the week, in the Chassidish parsha for that week, so usually the Dibur HaMaschal comes from the parsha, from a pasuk in that parsha. And if you open up Parshas Vayira, okay, Pasach Eliyahu about the Zohar and Atzilus. So what connection to Parshas Vayira? So it's gonna, Parshas Vayira speaks about Sodom and Amorah, and that they did bad things, and Hashem wanted to destroy them. So it says that the crying out from Sodom and Amorah reached Hashem. So Hashem said, I'm going to come down and look and see if that crying out is correct, then I'm going to destroy them. So we have, the question is, what does it mean Hashem is going to come down and see if the outcry is justified? Well, where does Hashem have to come down from? Hashem is everywhere. What does it mean Hashem has to come down? So to explain what it means coming down and coming up, when you're speaking about Hashem, you need to first explain how Hashem conducts the world. Hashem can do anything. Hashem decided that there should be something called Seder Shtalshlus. There should be a way that He reveals Himself and connects to the world, that He's Bari Olam Manhigoy, how Hashem is creating and guiding the world. And this is through Seder Shtalshlus, and specifically it's through Atzilus. So in order to explain this idea, we first have to explain a little bit about Atzilus and how the midas of Atzilus work, how Hashem comes and guides the world, how He decided that He should. And in order to explain that, we need to explain the analogy from a person. That Hashem decided that the way that He's going to run the world is going to be similar to how the soul comes into the body and manifests itself in the body. So first we have to explain a little bit how the soul works, and then we can explain a little bit about how Hashem manifests Himself in the world, how He guides and conducts the world, which is through the world called Atzilus. So we're going to bring the mimer that Eliyahu Navi said, that he told Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and so that's what it says. Pasach Eliyahu. Eliyahu opened up his mimer. What did he say in his mimer? Antu chad v'loy v'chushpan antu da'pikas asay tikun cholu. It says you're one, but not numerically, and you took out 10 tikkunin. So the word tikkunin, we're going to translate, is going to mean something like a jewel or ornament. So I'll just give a little bit of a hakdama, a little bit of a preface to what we're going to speak about. We want to explain how the soul works. And we're going to say that there's 3 aspects to the soul. There's the essence of the soul, there's the intellect and emotions of the soul, and there's the way the soul expresses itself through thoughts, speech, and deed. There are 3 aspects of the soul. And in order to explain the difference between how the essence of the soul is manifest or is expressed in the intellect and emotions, and the way it's expressed in thought, speech, and deed. So we're going to give 2 different types of mashal, 2 different types of examples. First, we're going to give a mashal, an analogy of the difference between clothing and jewelry. And then we're going to give an analogy of the difference between clothing and the body, the way the soul is manifested and clothed and invested. Enclosed is not an English word, by the way, even though it's used in all of the Kahas books. There's no English word in English dictionary called enclosed. There is a word called invested, which you could somehow say that it means the hislabshus, whatever. Anyways, so that's going to be the second analogy. Is going to be the difference between the way the soul is manifest in the body and the way it's manifest through the clothing. So first we're going to explain the difference between jewelry and clothing. Why are the 10 spheres of Atzilus called jewelry or adornments? That they somehow, Hashem is adorned through them. What is that supposed to mean? We first have to explain how the soul works. He or Pashut Blis Chalkos Seichel Midas. Vaseichel Midas Shalahin Bechenes Evush in the Nefesh. Shanefesh Yesh La Seichel Midas. Aval Einen Mahus VeAtzmius Nefesh. The soul itself is one simple essence that is not divided into intellect and emotion. The intellect and the emotion is like garments, that through that the person is expressing his soul. The soul itself is one simple essence, which is then expressed in a way of thinking and a way of feeling. So in other words, a person, there's two main, in this context, there's two parts to the person. There's the way that he thinks and feels, his intellect and his emotion. But then the ultimate essence of the person is not some kind of way of thinking or some kind of feeling. It's a much higher type of existence, which is a simple essence, which is indivisible. It's So now, Alter is asking, we said in Tanya that the Seichel and the Midas is called the essence of the soul, compared to the Machshava Dibur Maisa. A person's thought, speech, and deed is only an expression of the person, whereas an intellect and emotion, that's what makes up the person. So, how are we saying that the soul itself is a simple essence, which is indivisible, which is higher than intellect and emotion? We mean to say that really both are true. It depends what you're talking about. Compared to the thought, speech, and deed, so the intellect and the emotion is part of the make of a person. You can't say it's not you if this is what you think and feel. This is a part of your personality. But compared to the ultimate essence of the person, so even the way you think and feel is not your ultimate essence. It's a part of who you are, but it's not the essence of who you are. But through your intellect and emotion, through the way you think and feel, that's how you express your essence. That's the makeup and the expression of who you are. So we're translating, what does the word tikkun mean? The pasuk says a man should not wear the clothing or the simlas, which normally you'd say it means clothing of a man should not wear the clothing of a woman, and a woman should not wear the clothing of a man. Targum Onkelos says that he shouldn't wear tikkune. So tikkune is some kind of clothing. What type of clothing? Tachshit. The word tikkun means to fix up and correct and make good. Like if you have something broken and you fix it up, so you complete it. So it means to complete and perfect. Clothing, there could be two functions of clothing. One idea of clothing is that it protects you. The other idea of clothing is that it beautifies you, it makes you beautiful, it brings out the beauty of the soul. Those are two things that clothing does. So that's why it's called a tikkun. Because your intellect and emotion, it brings out the essence of the soul in a way that is tangible. If this essence of the soul would be a simple essence that you're not able to relate to, then there's no way that anybody can have an idea what it is. So that simple essence is expressed in intellect and emotion, is expressed in how you think and feel. So now it becomes beautiful. You can see it's such a beautiful person, it's a beautiful soul. So this makes it beautiful. That's why it's called a tikkun. It's an adornment that brings out the beauty of the soul. Ukemoy. So now the author is going to give a second type of analogy, which is like the way the soul is invested and manifest in the body. Ukemoy nefesh maguf. Shem here to guf hulavush lenefesh mikumakom hare nefesh mispa'elis mimikre guf. Shekesh haguf nekif etzbar margeshes hanefesh. V'chein masha ele baratzan nefesh lifol eze pu'ula beivar. Eivar nishmar baratzan zeh teguf imyad kasher baratzan ilasas ha'pu'ula haregel ha'lech bechulu. Belishum kedima his pashtus vam shachas ha'machshava mehamoyech beregel. She'im ken hay eze shihu izman. Ma v'rei enush shehafilu rega ala miyad ala b'tzana chulu. Ach ein ze element b'nei shaguf misachli im hanefesh v'hanefesh po'elis b'kiratzena ki ilu hi haya atzmusa mahusa mamish v'av shaguf hu levush hanefesh mikalakum hu misachli im hanefesh. So what does this mean? The way the soul is manifest and invested in the body is that it becomes unified and united with the body, that it becomes like one thing. The soul is a spiritual entity and the body is a physical entity. So really, they should be completely separate. Really, there's no... Logically, you wouldn't say that that they should be one unit called a person. It should be that there's a body and there's a soul. But no, it's not like that. It's not that there's a soul that happens to be connected to a piece of meat that's walking around. No, there's a person. A person means that the soul and the body become one and one unit, one existence. So the soul is affected by the body. Whatever happens to the body, the soul feels pain when you're hitting. So you hit your hand, the soul feels pain. Why? You're not hitting the soul. You're just hitting the body, because the soul is one with the body. And the body is affected by the soul. Whatever the soul says to do, the body does immediately. It doesn't have to wait. It doesn't have to wait for it to come in the mail, or even to come in email, or even to come higher than Madrega than email, versus Twitter and all the other things. Immediately, in less than a second, the soul automatically affects the body, because the body and the soul become one entity. So the same thing, וכמייכן יובן על דרך זה עניין השכל והמידס של הנפש. גם כן רק בכנס תיקון ללבושין שהנפש מסתכנס ומסתבשת בהן, והן כלי הנפש שבהן וליירן פעלס הנפש כגרזם בין החסי בוי. להויב במידס אבא ולהשכיל בחוכמה חולו. שכל זה וכיוצא בזה הוא רק פעולס הנפש וספשטוסה, שאינן אלא ממנה לזולסה. אבל הנפש מצד עצמה היא למעלה מכל הבחינס הללו. So we're saying like this: just like the body and the soul become unified, that the soul is expressed through the body, and that's what it means. It's niskan. It becomes completed and perfected through the body, because it's revealed and expressed through the body. And in order to do that, it has to become unified with the body. The same thing, the essence of the soul is expressed through the intellect and the emotion. The simple essence of the person, if it wouldn't be for the intellect and the emotions, there's no way that it could be revealed in the world. There's no way it could do anything. The only way that you can connect to this person is because you know how he thinks, you know how he feels, you know what he's doing. That's how you know that there's a person. So the intellect and the emotion is called the tikkunin. It perfects the soul. The soul becomes perfected and complete when it's able to be revealed and expressed in the intellect and emotions, in the way you think and feel. So the top line on the second Amud in the original Torah. So the intellect and the emotion, even though that's how the soul expresses itself, that if the soul wants to express love, it's through the heart, through a person's emotions, and if it wants to understand, it's through the person's intellect. But that's how the soul expresses itself. But the soul itself is much higher than just an intellect and emotion. It's just higher than the way a person thinks and feels. Now the author is going to bring a proof. How do you know that a person's essence is higher than his intellect and emotion? In other words, you might think, if you never learned Hasidus, you would say, what's a person? What makes up your personality? The way you think and feel, that makes up your personality. That's what makes you a person. Otherwise, there's nothing else to you. He's saying, no, there's a lot more to you than just the way you think and feel. How do you know? Because when you were born, you had a soul. And when you're adult, you have the same soul. You didn't get a new soul. So if your soul would be the way you think and feel, then you're a new person. That's right. Then you're a different person. Because when you were born, you thought the only thing you could think about was that you like to play with blocks. And then you thought that you like to have candy. And now you think that you want to have an iPod. or an iPad or whatever it is. So you're a new person. Oh, so how many people are you? You're you're 15 people. It's not like that. There's one simple essence, like which is emails. Yeah. There's one simple essence which is unchangeable, which is not changed by the way that by time. In other words, if the soul, if the same person that he originally his intellect and emotion was on this level, and then it developed to a different level. So all these different stages of his intellect and emotion are all the same person. What does it mean, the same person? The same essence. The same essence is expressed through those different types of intellect and emotion, through the different stages of a person's life. This proves that there's one simple essence of the person which is much higher than just the way that he thinks and feels. And that's why he's the same person from the time that he was born until the time that he's an adult. Because the intellect and the emotion, they change. In emotion, there's different stages of development. A child loves small things, and an adult loves bigger things. And the intellect changes. A person's very young; they can't understand things so well. And when they become an adult, they can understand things better. You can't say that about the essence of the person, because that doesn't change. You're only one person. And also, the essence of the person is not affected by what happens to the body. What is affected by the body? Only the expression of the soul, only the extension of your personality, which that's your intellect and emotions, and that's the part of the body which is limited to the part of the soul which is limited to the body. That's affected by the body. But the essence of your personality, the essence of who you are, is not directly affected by what happens to the body. And that's why after a person passes away, after 180 years, or whatever, or if never, like, because Mashiach's coming now, but it used to be that people would pass away, so they still exist, they still have the same personality. Why? How could they exist? Because the essence of the person is not limited to the body in any way. It's not affected by the body. So we see that intellect and emotion is only an expression of the person, but not the essence. But the intellect and emotion, the way a person thinks and feels, that's called ha'ara. It's called a light. It's an expression and the revelation of the soul of the person. This is how you see the person. So even though it's only an expression of the soul, it's not the essence, but it's not like garments which are completely separate from the person. So now the Alter is saying this is the difference between the way the soul is expressed in the intellect and the emotions and in thought, speech, and deed. The thought, speech, and deed of a person is like the clothing that you wear, that it covers you over. When you wear clothing, so it protects you, but it also covers you over. You can't see the person, you see his clothing. So it does express you, but it also covers you at the same time. So the way that you act in the world, it expresses you, but it also covers you over, because that's not who the person is, that's what he's doing. So it's an expression of the person, but it's removed from the person. It's a step removed from who the person himself is. Just like your clothing, that the way that it's connected to the soul is that the soul is enclosed, is not enclosed. It's invested. Is invested in the body, and the body wears clothing. Invested means. Well, you look in a dictionary, you see invested means whatever. There's a bunch of definitions of invested, whatever. We mean to say the way the soul is revealed, manifest in the body, and then the body wears clothing. So the clothing is also connected to the soul, but indirectly. So the same thing, a person's thought, speech, and deed is an expression of the person, but it's an indirect expression of the essence of the person. because it could be separated from the person. Your actions could be separated from the person himself. Whereas the intellect and the emotion is like a lavush hamiyuchad. In other words, it's like the way the soul is manifest in the body. The way the soul is manifest in the body, it can't be separated from the body unless you destroy the person's whole life, chas v'shalom, at least their physical life, not their spiritual life, but the physical life of the person ends when you separate the body from the soul. You can't just take it off. Your relationship with your clothing does not end when you take off your clothing. It's in fact not affected in any way. You take it off and you put it on, that's fine. But the soul and the body is not like that. It becomes one unit, becomes unified. If you take the soul out of the body, then the person is not alive. It's the same thing. The way that the soul is expressed and manifest in the intellect and emotion is that it's a person, that's part of your personality. That's part of who you are. It's not just something separate from you that you are. You're a person who also thinks and feels. It's the way you think and feel, that is the makeup of your personality, but it's not the essence of your personality. And this is the difference between, I can say very quickly, the difference between jewelry and regular clothing. Jewelry is not to protect you, does not cover over you, it just makes you beautiful. The ring you wear doesn't, it's covering over your finger. I can't see your whole finger. That's not the point of a ring. The ring brings out the beauty. So that's like the intellect and the emotions, that it brings out the soul, it doesn't cover over the soul. So now, that's an analogy. This whole thing we said is an analogy for Atzilus. The Hashem himself is much higher than any spiritual level, any way that he's manifest and revealed in our world. But the way that he reveals himself and is manifest to us, there's two levels. Just like there's two levels in how the essence of the person is expressed in his intellect and emotion, and in his thought, speech, and deed. So the essence of Hashem is revealed on one level called Atzilus, which that's like the intellect and the emotions, where it's united with Hashem, it's one with Hashem, it's nothing other than Hashem, you're only seeing Hashem, you're not seeing anything else. And the way that Hashem reveals himself in the created worlds of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, where in the worlds of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, it's like the thought, speech, and deed. That is an expression of Hashem, but it's an indirect expression of Hashem. It's revealing Hashem, but it's also covering over Hashem's revelation. So too, in the 10 spheres of Atzilus, they're called tikkun, they're called jewelry. Meaning that they only reveal and they don't cover over Hashem. So in Atzilus, they're like jewelry. They're only revealing Hashem. They're not covering over at all. Whereas the spheres, the way that Hashem reveals himself in the created worlds of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, they're like clothing that they cover over. They reveal Hashem, but they also cover over Hashem. That's why they're called Levushin Tikkun. They're like clothing. Kihini antu chakim pirish antu. Hainu orin sif chakim shimshach mochenes chachma al derech b'makom shatim atzigul atzachulu. V'nein enu chakim b'chachma yidiyah ela shnukar chakim lefi shehu makor hachachma menu hamshachas chachma b'viyah hagam shein aver chachma debriya chulu. Kol shekein da'asiyah chulu v'yos nikar b'shem chakim al shem zeh. So now, okay, I'll just say one thing to translate a little bit. Yeah, I see that. Antu Hakim, you are smart. What does that mean? Who's you and what's smart? It's funny way of speaking, funny way of asking a question. That's like a Jewish way. What's it mean you? What's it mean smart? Fine. Antu Hakim means, yeah. Antu Hakim means Hashem, you, when you say you mean Hashem, becomes revealed in wisdom. Hashem connects himself and is expressed through the wisdom of Atzilus. Hashem's wisdom and intellect, the way that's revealed and manifest in the world of Atzilus. Just like the soul of the person, the essence of the person is expressed in his intellect. So in a different way, which we don't have time to explain now, Hashem reveals himself and is manifest in his intellect that he made in the world of Atzilus. And Hashem's wisdom, that's the wisdom of the Torah, which is manifest, revealed in the world of Atzilus. So we'll stop now, Bez Hashem, continue this idea.